and welcome back to our Path Class series. If you haven't seen our first two videos or any of our other adoption foster care videos, I'm going to go ahead and link that playlist down below. But PATH, if you don't know what that means, stands for Parents as
Tender
Healers. Yes. So it is the state mandated class series that we have to take here in Tennessee, and I honestly think like half the states in the US have this same class series. There are different class series that can, vary state by state, and obviously everything we're talking about, maybe this isn't obvious if you don't already know this, things vary drastically, not only state by state, but also county by county. So the purpose of this is not only to share our personal experience, but also because if you do have PATH classes in your state and maybe you want some insight into what you're going into, that is why we are documenting each class. And for our own personal records, and so many of you guys wanted to see it. So today we're going to be talking about PATH class number 3, which was all about the topic of discipline. So the second class was about trauma and what these kids go through and just all of that. And the first class was on how the court system works. So class 3, all about discipline. Now,
the big no is spanking.
Yeah.
Punishment.
Yeah.
So you can't tie them up, lock them in a closet, spank, hit. They have a list of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And the do's help.
Yes, the do's do help.
Okay, what can you do? And there's a lot of different things that you can do, and we should probably list those out. We have the folder.
Yeah.
So you all can know what they say is a good way to discipline without, causing further trauma to the traumatized child that's in your home.
Exactly. I think we should get that notebook in a second to kind of reference, which by the way, I realized in the court system, the first video of the PATH series, I totally forgot to add a screenshot of the page, but then after it was live, I was like, it's fine. If you're taking a class, you're going to see it, and that one screenshot isn't going to suddenly teach you about the court system anyways, so it's fine. But it was cute because when we took our class, we're at a Christian agency, to those of you who didn't know that, now you know, called Agape, and they talk about how they feel like discipline is discipling, and they talked a lot about the difference between discipline and punishment. And to my understanding, the way that they kind of define discipline is gentle teaching and guidance, and punishment is more like cause and effect. You did this, you're punished. And part of discipline...
Right, when we get home, because you did this, I'm going to whoop your ass. That's not teaching them a lesson.
Yeah.
According to them.
Yeah, and according to them...
And it's not the way I learn either.
Well, yeah, according to them, and we've talked a lot about this, this is kind of a side note, so we talked about the spanking, right? And this is kind of separate from punishment versus discipline, but kind of similar. But something like that, especially with a foster child, could create not only more fear and anger and rebellion, or it could create obedience that is just based off of fear. I don't want to get spanked. Which, not to go too far down this path, I think we talked about it a little bit in one of our earlier videos when we thought we were adopting internationally, because our agency, when we thought we were going down that route, had the same rule: no corporal punishment. You have to sign something agreeing to that. But Dan and I, we've been married for 11 years as of next week, and because he's a 5 and I'm a 7, which means we're both on the head triad and the Enneagram. If you don't know what the Enneagram is, I'll link that video down below. I am considering, by the way, making a video called a 5 and a 7 in a relationship, or our Enneagram relationship, and talking about that. I'm considering it. Anyways, we're both, the point being is, on the Enneagram.
Another video that I could just sit on the couch
and just go,
while you talk.
I'm so sorry. You know what though? People in the comments freaking love your contributions. Everyone's all, Dan the man! Dan!
I mean, I could chime in whenever, but I'm not the yapper.
I'm definitely the yapper.
This is cool.
But so we're both 5s and 7s.
Minus the sun.
I know, I'm sorry.
There's clouds, but then every once in a while they go away.
Just don't look this way, baby. So what that means in the Enneagram is we're both in the category called like the thinking category, the head type. And so we've talked about this for years in our marriage about what we were going to do when we had kids. Both of us were spanked growing up, and I feel like both of our parents fall into that category of, like people that believe in spanking. I feel like our parents were like model spankers. Like neither of our parents spanked us pretty much. I don't know fully about yours, but I think from what you said, they never spanked from like, oh, I'm mad you're gonna get a spanking. It was always like, we're gonna talk about what you did wrong and why you're getting this spanking. That being said though, it's interesting because even
what they use?
My parents?
Yeah.
Either a spatula or their hand, but mostly a spatula.
Oh, the hand wouldn't work.
Why would you?
I guess because we're boys. I don't know.
What'd you get?
A wooden spoon or the paint stirrer.
Oh.
And I used to joke because there's holes in the paint stirrer, so it could just through the air faster.
Oh my gosh. So.
Anyways,
I come from a family that I would consider loving and stable. And even still, I have always resented that I was spanked. Like, we talked about that so early on because I remember being a kid and, my parents were trying to follow what they believed, / I think still believe, is, like, biblical. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, like, spare the rod, spoil the child. And so to them, that's what that meant. But I remember being a kid and they would talk to me about what happened and how I was in trouble and why I was in trouble. And I remember getting it and being, like, remorseful and then thinking, you don't have to spank me. Like, I get it. Please don't hit me. And I am, like, no, we're not going to say the word traumatized because I'm not traumatized, but that is burnt in my memory. And I come from a supportive, loving family. So all of that being said, Dan and I, our entire marriage, have talked about like, hey, I don't think we want to spank our kids. And I've actually read some books. There's a book called No Drama Discipline that I read recently about other parenting tactics and techniques that are not spanking. And on a side note, I just want to say, all of that being said, even though I feel very passionately like I don't want to spank my kid, we're not like, if you're a spanker, I wouldn't say we're like adamantly against spanking. Like, you're a spanker? Because I do also think it's like, I don't really know. This is just the thoughts that we've developed over the years. Everybody's got different opinions. Every kid is different. Like, I have heard parents say that sometimes a kid just needs a spanking, like they are not getting it. But speaking from personal experience, I remember getting it and being like, why? Why do you have to hit me, Dad? And I know it's not hitting, it's spanking, but it's hitting. And so we felt this way forever. And so it was kind of a joke between us because sometimes we would say to people, like, I don't know if we're going to spank our kids. And they'd be like, like, how are you, like, going to train your kid? And they would get kind of, like, weird or uncomfortable or judgy about it.
We'll see.
And we're like, I guess we'll just find out. So it was kind of like a phew when we found out, like, you're not allowed to spank. We're like, oh, dang it. Like, darn. So it's going to be interesting.
Theory, once the kid is adopted, then the government and all the rules are gone.
I think that's only like a year after, though, because I think they keep visiting you for like a year. I'm not positive about that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, because I think they keep checking in to make sure that it's smoothly, the transition has happened smoothly.
They also said, like, if you're a family with 3 kids and then you adopt a kid and they're acting up, you're not allowed to spank them, but you've been spanking your other 3 kids and then they act up. It's like, it's probably not a good idea that you continue spanking your kids and then not spanking the others. It's like, there are so many different ways. They just say it's just best that you treat everyone the same.
Yeah, and I actually think...
You don't have to, but
yes,
there are things that you have to and can't do, and just... whatever.
I think looking back on the classes we've taken so far, the discipline class was my favorite by far, just because this whole concept that we've talked about for years of not spanking. And like I said, we've done research, I've listened to books, I've watched videos, I've listened to podcasts, but it was different being in a classroom setting, and she presented us with material that I hadn't seen before, and like psychologists talking about how to handle kids' behavioral issues and when they act up. And I was fascinated by it. And, you know, we'll find out if it works in practice, because we've never been parents. I keep saying that, but like part of what freaks me out about all of this is I don't want to be all like, oh yeah, I know. And then I'm a parent, I'm like, ah! Like freaking out. I guess it was cool to see them present us with these other ways of communicating with children. Oh, that's what I was going to say, is that it really resonated with me. Like every video we watched, like that one lady, what was her name? Karen.
Oh.
I'll put her name on the screen because I wrote it in the notes. But she's not alive anymore, but there are a lot of videos of her on YouTube. Karen Purvis, I'm 99% sure that's her name. I loved her videos, the way that she would talk about talking to children. It like warmed my heart, and I was like, I hope I can do that, and I hope it pans out that way. It's a little like idealistic to where I'm like, is it really gonna play out like that? But I hope it does. But yeah.
Yeah, no. Some of the scenarios that they depicted in the reenactments.
But those were the
in
DCS
the
videos.
Yeah, like there's in no universe is this situation going to turn out like this.
Yeah, it's
so
like
it's kind of comical. But.
It's like not just okay. I know that some of the people that watch these videos are DCS workers,
and the actors are not actors.
Okay, so that's
They're
what I was going to say. I don't want to slam
so maybe
DCS
that's what I'm talking about.
because they're doing the best job they can, and their top priority is taking care of kids, not producing quality entertainment. But it's I mean like it just I feel like these videos are significantly old now, and they didn't use actors.
Although like actually the last video that we watched, there was one actor in there. I was like, man, finally someone that can act. But literally everybody else, it's like they weren't even ever an extra before this gig.
I just want to say, if you are an actor in a DCS video, and maybe you're one of those people, we love you. Maybe it wasn't even your fault. Maybe it was the editing. Who knows? But yeah.
Well, it's not the actor's fault. It's the director's fault saying, okay, that's great. We're going to move on.
No, let's say this. We don't know whose fault it was. It's no one's fault in particular, but it made us giggle a little bit. But so the scenario's not that great. But the psychologist they interviewed, that was super interesting and helpful. And embarking down this whole parenting path, it's just gonna be fascinating to see how things actually play out and what it's like to actually interact with children in our home on a day-to-day basis. So we got this whole like notebook thing that talks about different techniques on how to just like parent children. So they talk about all these things, like if there's bad behavior, just different techniques that you can use. You can use cooling off periods where you separate and you both cool down before you come back together. You can let logical consequences unfold. So like one of the kids, we saw a video of a kid who got in trouble with the law, and the parent allowed the natural consequences of getting in trouble with the law to unfold. You could have a sense of humor. I've done this with my brother before, where it's like he's misbehaving and I could look to him and be like, why are you doing that? Or I can be like, boo, you really want to go there? Don't do that. Like I can make it funny, and he's like, okay. And it still causes the same outcome of like, yay, he's listening, but I didn't like make it suddenly super serious and sad. There's, changing direction. There's active ignoring. So like, sometimes if a kid's doing something just to get your attention, which like, that's the weird thing. Sometimes kids are trying to get your attention and you need to give them attention. And sometimes it's like, you just gotta ignore the behavior because you don't want to reward that. Why are you laughing?
I just, every day of my life, I always remember a scene from South Park.
Oh my gosh.
There was a scene where there isn't a nanny that can handle Cartman.
Oh my gosh.
So they call the dog whisperer, and Caesar treats Eric Cartman like he is a dog.
It's funny.
And he will not look at him even though he's talking and asking for attention. He will not give him attention.
So cute.
And he's talking about Eric Cartman to his mom in front of Eric, but he will not give him attention. And then he'll poke him in the neck like he does the dog.
Yes. So funny.
And it totally worked.
So that is active ignoring,
So
shown
good.
by South Park. Older kids,
Shown by Caesar.
you can do like contracts with them, which is funny because my therapist has actually mentioned that before in previous years when we were dealing with certain issues. Coming to a very blatant conclusion together, an agreement, getting the kids involved in the solution, like how are we going to tackle this? What do we want to change? All of this kind of doesn't apply to us because we're going for a baby, but it's part of the licensing process. It's interesting. I'm sure it will be helpful in retrospect as years go on. So they give
Do you
you.
want to escape or do you want to just?
He wants to dance. They give you a list of. It's called DCS Behavior Tip for resource parents because that's what you are called when you're in the system. We are resource parents. There are biological parents, that's obvious, legal parents, which is the state basically, and then resource parents, which is us. And our job as resource parents is to provide love and safety and help transport them to where they need to be, feed them, take care of them, all of that. So they give a list of like, do encourage your child, do praise positive behavior, do use positive reinforcement, do model positive behavior, do find opportunities to practice positive behavior, do de-escalate situations using questions, and then they go into their don'ts. Don't use corporal or physical punishment for misbehavior, which I know I went off on my own rant about corporal punishment, and he really touched on it, but I didn't really acknowledge that very much. That the whole point is like, yeah, you don't want traumatized kids coming into your home who don't know you, don't trust you, are terrified, or dealing with trauma, and then suddenly you're basically hitting them. Like I said, we can call it spanking, because that is what it is, but it's hitting. Yeah, it's a stranger.
I don't know how I would feel about a stranger hitting me, but...
I would lose it.
Oh my God.
I would literally lose it.
But it says model behavior, so if you teach them that it's wrong to lie, or you've been disciplining them in some way because they lie, and then they answer the phone and they say who it is. Oh, tell them I'm not home. Well, you're lying, so that's not a good example, for the kid. So,
yeah, you want to be consistent.
right.
They talk to us a lot about that in class too. They're like, when you set rules, consistency is important. So they said, don't humiliate, ridicule, name call, or degrade a child for misbehavior. Don't let one child punish another child. Do not deny meals, sleep, or assign exercise for misbehavior. Side note, they said that everything that's listed in here is listed because it's been done before.
Go run laps.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't deny planned visits, so you are not allowed as a foster parent to ever threaten that they will not get to visit their parents. That is not, you don't even have the right to make that happen, and so therefore you're not allowed to threaten that, especially because they're traumatized and the whole goal is to get them back with their parents.
You can get your foster care status taken away.
Revoked.
You can be kicked out of this. So
Do not deny an opportunity to attend religious services for misbehavior. Don't seclude a child as punishment. Don't give medication beyond what is prescribed to get the child to calm down.
yeah,
This
no
is called
Benadryl
chemical
to
restraint.
make them sleep. Things like that.
Don't physically restrain a child. So yeah, and then they go through like just all kinds of scenarios. Like I said, techniques like, okay, well, if I'm not allowed to do this, what am I allowed to do? And then that's why they give you this whole, all these lists. It's 21 different things. And with each thing, they give you a whole, like a paragraph. So like number 1 says act, don't talk. And underneath it says, try acting instead of talking, which that's something that I learned from my therapist. And I actually read a book a few years ago. It's pretty interesting, called How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It. And so this is a common, like, I guess, thing that's talked about of just like, how do you make something change without talking about it? So it says, try acting instead of talking. Listen to yourself for one day. You might be amazed at how many useless words you say. Children can tune out parents because they talk too much. If you act more and talk less, your children will notice the difference. If children are fighting over a toy, quietly remove it and put it where they can't reach it. You don't need to say a word for them to get the idea that they can have the toy back when they stop fighting over it. You have to get their attention before the children can hear what you have to say. Notice how much quicker you get results if you stand up or move forward towards your child while you are talking, instead of sitting in an armchair yelling instructions. Cool. And it goes on and on. They give like all kinds of, you know, examples for like logical consequences.
It just seems like when it comes down to it is to not be lazy.
You could look at it that way.
Because, getting angry and overreacting to something is lazy. Screaming from the chair, that's lazy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Using your brain power and actually diffusing the situation while simultaneously being a good example, and they've learned something.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Yeah. No, you do.
It makes so much more sense. Yes. And yeah.
It's like being on your phone. Like, that's a good example. It's like it's lazy if you're not going to engage with your kid because you're on your phone. So logical consequences. Logical consequences are the ones that require the intervention of an adult because the behavior causes potential danger, i.e. the child is playing in the street, or causes problems for others, child throws rock at another person, or doesn't seem like a problem to the child. Child doesn't bathe, refuses to do homework, steals. Here are some examples of logical consequences. Riding the tricycle into the street. Logical consequence. Tricycle is put up for 1 week. Refusal to brush teeth regularly. Logical consequence. No more sweets until regular toothbrushing is begun. Brother and sister fuss all morning. Logical consequence. Family outing to the park is canceled. Behavior. Stealing. Consequence. Make restitution. So they go on and on. So a logical consequence, though, I was mixing the words, is different than a natural consequence. So a natural consequence would be like the behavior is handling a cat roughly. The consequence is getting scratched. A behavior is not wearing a coat on a cold day, and the natural consequence is being cold. Getting ready for school very slowly, being late for school in the morning, and explaining to the teacher why you're late. Behavior, breaking a toy on purpose. Consequence, having a broken toy that is not replaced by a new one. And they describe a natural consequence as things that happen naturally following the behavior. They happen without adult intervention. So, they go on and on. They explain all of the tactics that they put in that little one sheet. I don't know, bruh.
Cool.
I don't even think I have anything else to say about this.
No, that was pretty much it.
Also, whenever we don't want to discipline our kid, we can just make Zoe go handle it.
Zoe loves to discipline.
She's tough.
She will abide by the rules. She will make sure they follow every single step.
Ooh, boop. Oh, her wrist just cracked. All right, guys. So that is it for this second PATH class update, all on discipline. We will see you back here soon with the third class and then the fourth class and so on and so forth. And I'll have the playlist linked down below in case you want to watch our whole journey or you missed any of the videos. And I'll see you back here soon. All right. Bye.